Sometimes the universe sends us angels in the most unexpected forms. Today's story will shake you to your core and prove that when darkness tries to win, light always finds a way. Meet Jake Rodriguez, a 27-year-old investment banker who believed money was everything. Corporate ladder climber, luxury lifestyle, zero emotional connection, success without substance. But his obsession with wealth had turned him into a stranger to himself. Everything changed on a stormy November night in Montana. Jake was racing down Route 93 after closing another massive deal, already planning his next conquest. Thunder crashed overhead. His Bluetooth headset buzzed with client calls. He was chasing numbers, not dreams, completely blind to what really mattered. Then he saw them. 3 massive wolves standing directly in his headlights, blocking the narrow mountain road. Not moving. Not afraid. Just waiting. Jake slammed his brakes, his BMW skidding to a stop just feet from the pack. His heart hammered against his ribs. Bears? In Montana? This close to Billings? The largest bear, a massive black giant, walked straight to his driver's side window and pressed its enormous paw against the glass. Its dark eyes locked onto Jake's, and for a moment, time stopped. Then it did something that defied everything Jake thought he knew about nature. The bear turned and began walking toward the forest. It stopped, looked back at Jake, and let out a deep, rumbling call that echoed through the mountains. The other 2 bears joined in, their voices creating a symphony that made Jake's spine tingle. Every logical part of his brain screamed, "Drive away. Now." But something deeper, something primal, whispered, "Follow them." Jake grabbed his phone's flashlight and stepped into the freezing rain. The bears waited until he was close, then began moving through the dense forest. Jake stumbled over rocks and fallen branches, his expensive suit getting torn by thorns. After 20 minutes of hiking, they reached a cliff overlooking a deep canyon. The bears gathered at the edge, growling and pacing frantically. Jake approached carefully and peered over. His blood turned to ice. 50 feet below, wrapped around a boulder, was a crushed motorcycle. Steam rose from its twisted frame. Through the scattered debris, Jake could see a figure lying motionless on the rocky ground. "Holy hell!" he whispered. Without thinking, Jake dialed 911. But there was no signal. The mountains had swallowed his connection to the world. The bears looked at him expectantly, as if they knew he was the only hope. Jake had 2 choices: hike back to get help, knowing the person below would likely die from hypothermia or internal bleeding, or find a way down himself. He chose to act. Using his phone's flashlight, Jake found a narrow path down the canyon. Every step was treacherous. Loose rocks gave way beneath his feet. Branches whipped across his face. But the bears guided him, their massive forms moving with surprising grace in the darkness. When he finally reached the crash site, Jake's hands shook as he approached the victim. It was a young man, maybe 24, unconscious but breathing. Blood trickled from his forehead. His pulse was weak but steady. "Hey," Jake said softly, gently shaking his shoulder. "Can you hear me?" His eyes fluttered open. Am I dead?" he whispered. "No. You're alive. My name's Jake. I'm going to get you out of here." His name was David. He was a paramedic driving home from his shift at Billings General Hospital. He'd been working overtime to pay for his younger sister's college tuition. The storm had made the roads treacherous, and he'd lost control on a sharp curve. "My back," he gasped. "I can't feel my legs." Jake carefully examined the situation. David's spine might be injured. Moving him wrong could cause permanent paralysis. He needed immediate medical attention, but Jake was terrified of making things worse. That's when Jake noticed something incredible. The three bears had somehow made their way down the canyon. They sat in a perfect triangle around David, as if standing guard. The largest bear looked directly at Jake and let out a soft rumble, almost like it was saying, "Hurry!" Jake realized the bears weren't just random animals. They were guardians. He tore off his jacket and wrapped it around David to keep him warm. Then he made a decision that would change everything. "David, I need you to stay awake, okay? Talk to me. Tell me about your sister." As David shared his story, how he'd raised her after their parents died, how she was studying to become a doctor but struggled financially, Jake felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Compassion. For the first time in his life, someone else's dreams mattered more than his own profit margins. Jake climbed back up the canyon in record time, driven by pure determination. He reached the road and flagged down the first vehicle he saw, a pickup truck driven by a local rancher named Tom. "You're not gonna believe this," Jake said, breathless. Tom not only believed it, he called his nephew who worked search and rescue. Within 30 minutes, the mountainside was swarming with emergency vehicles. Paramedics rappelled down the cliff with specialized equipment. As they carefully extracted David from the crash site, Jake held his hand. "Thank you," David whispered. "You saved my life." "No," Jake said, looking at the three bears watching from the tree line. "We all did." David made a full recovery. The doctor said if he'd been trapped for another hour in those freezing temperatures, he wouldn't have survived. But here's where the story gets even more incredible. Jake and David stayed in touch during his recovery. He visited him in the hospital, met his sister Emma, and for the first time in years, felt what it meant to be part of something bigger than himself. 6 months later, Jake quit his banking job and started a non-profit organization focused on emergency medical services in rural areas. He used his business skills and connections to raise millions for ambulance services across Montana. David became his partner, both in business and in life's mission. They opened their foundation 2 years later on the exact spot where the bears had led him to David. And those three bears? They were never seen again. Wildlife officials had no record of bear sightings in that area. Some said they were just wandering wildlife. Others claimed they were spirit guides. Jake knew the truth. Sometimes the universe sends us exactly what we need, exactly when we need it. Those bears didn't just save David's life, they saved Jake's soul. The man who had been living for profit learned what it meant to live for purpose. The paramedic who spent his life saving others found someone who would spend his life expanding that mission. And somewhere in the Montana mountains, three mysterious guardians completed their mission and returned to whatever realm sends angels when the world needs them most. Here's what this story teaches us. Your purpose isn't always what you planned. Sometimes it's hidden in the moments when you choose to follow your instincts instead of your fears. When you choose to act instead of waiting for someone else to step up. Jake thought success meant accumulating wealth and status. But real success meant being the person someone else needed when their world was falling apart. The bears knew something Jake had forgotten. We're all connected. When one of us falls, we all have a responsibility to help them stand back up. Your life might feel ordinary right now. Your daily routine might seem meaningless. But you never know when you'll be called to be someone's miracle. Stay ready. Stay open. And when the universe sends you bears to follow, don't hesitate. Because the greatest adventures aren't the ones you plan, they're the ones that choose you. If this story moved you, hit that subscribe button and share it with someone who needs to remember that heroes come in all forms, sometimes even with 4 legs and mysterious dark eyes. Turn on notifications because next week, we're diving into another incredible true story that will change how you see the world. Remember, your next opportunity to change a life might be just around the corner.